So, Hare Krishna. It is my great honor and privilege to be here at Bhaktivedanta Manor with all of the assembled Vaishnavas. I always feel exceptionally disqualified to be sitting here, especially amongst so many esteemed and exalted servants of their wonderful lordships. So therefore, I would like to beg for blessings from all of you that you see fit to bestow your mercy upon me so that I can speak something relevant and bona fide from the exalted pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. Also on this auspicious occasion of Sri Balaram Rasayatra and Hanuman Jayanti and the appearance day of Shyamananda Pandit. So it's a very, very auspicious occasion. So I'm very much seeking your blessings and mercy. Hare Krishna. So we're going to begin today reading from chapter 22. We're continuing the reading. I was told I'm reading 3 verses. Is that still correct? You mentioned 21, 22, and 23. That's correct? Okay. Just wanted to make sure I didn't transgress any etiquette or step on anyone's toes tomorrow. So I think we'll start with text 21, which is on the board, which does have a short purport, and then we'll carry on up to text 23, which has a longer purport. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Lord Brahma said, O well-wisher and master of all living entities, O worshipable deity of all the demigods, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, now this man has been sufficiently punished, for you have taken everything. Now you can release him. He does not deserve to be punished more. Purport. When Lord Brahma saw that Prahlad Maharaj and Vindyavali had already approached the Lord to ask mercy for Bali Maharaj, he joined them and recommended Bali Maharaj's release on the grounds of worldly calculations. Text 22. Kritsna tenena dattabur loka karmarjitaschaye niveditam cha sarvaswam atma viklavya diya. Bali Maharaj had already offered everything to your lordship. Without hesitation, he has offered his land, the planets, and whatever else he earned by his pious activities, including even his own body. Text 23. Yat padayor satadiyasya lilam pradaya durvankurara pividaya satim saparyam apyutamam gatimasau bhajate trilokim daswam avilakavyaman katam artim richit. Translation. By offering even water, newly grown grass, or flower buds at your lotus feet, those who maintain no mental duplicity can achieve the most exalted position within the spiritual world. This Bali Maharaj, without duplicity, has now offered everything in the 3 worlds. How then can he deserve to suffer from arrest? Purport. In Bhagavad Gita 9:26, it is stated, Patram pushpam phalam toyam yome bhaktya prayachati tadaham bhaktyuparitam ashnami prayatatmanaha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is so kind that if an unsophisticated person with devotion and without duplicity, offers at the lotus feet of the Lord a little flower, water, a fruit, or a leaf, the Lord accepts it. Then the devotee is promoted to Vaikuntha, the spiritual world. Brahma drew the Lord's attention to this subject and requested that he release Bali Maharaj, who was suffering, being bound by the ropes of Varuna, and who had already given everything, including the 3 worlds and whatever he possessed. Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militangena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Gena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadhati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patiranam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Brahma Vacha Buddha Bhavana Bhutesha Deva Deva Jaganmaya Munchayanam Ritasar Vaswam Nayam Arhati Nigraham. Lord Brahma said, O well-wisher and master of all living entities, O worshipable deity of all demigods, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, now this man has been sufficiently punished, for you have taken everything. Now you can release him. He does not deserve to be punished any more. So, very exciting section of the Bhagavatam, very instructive. We see here that Bali Maharaj has everything okay? We see here that Bali Maharaj has been bound by the ropes of Varun, and he is being more or less, quote unquote, punished by the Supreme Lord, by Vamanadev, who came in the guise, as we know the pastime, who came in the guise of a dwarf Brahmin, and more or less transcendentally tricked him to give up his entire kingdom, and ultimately the Devatas will be reinstalled into the heavenly kingdom. But such a powerful lesson that Bali Maharaj teaches us here, giving the example of Atmanivedanam, complete surrender, that even for the cause of, I guess you could say, dharma or proper activity, he disobeyed the instructions of his spiritual master, because his spiritual master was not instructing him correctly. And he knew that as soon as he surrendered to the will of Vamanadev, that actually all of his property and his dominion was going to be relinquished. So this in and of itself is a massive, massive lesson that, sometimes we may find that even we're asked in the process of our devotional service to perform some little activity that may inconvenience us in the slightest, and we feel that kind of pinch. Anyone's ever experienced that kind of, come on. Nandan Prabhu raised his hand very enthusiastically. So I guess no one else has ever experienced that, where we feel. I know, especially when I first joined, and I would be trying to chant my japa in japa period, and inevitably whoever was the temple commander at that time would always come into the room, and they would look around the room like this to try and find the most likely person to engage in the process of devotional service. And I'd always spot them and be like, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare. Inside praying, oh Krishna, please don't let him tap me on the shoulder and engage me in service. I just want to sit and chant. I just want to get on with my own thing. And somehow, inevitably, I would get the tap on the shoulder. And I remember being explained that, Prabhu, you must have been chanting such good rounds, because you're calling out to the Lord, my dear Lord, please engage me in your service. Please give me something to do with this life, with this body. Please engage me. And there he is, the instrument of the Lord's mercy coming to me. And the feeling within me is, please go away. Leave me alone. I want to get on with my devotional service. So, actually, this is what I would say grows and carries on to become some of the biggest tests in our devotional process, because the process of devotional service is one of surrender. And surrender, as Burijan Prabhu explains very often for persons from Western culture, the word surrender means you lose, right? If there's a war or a battle or a competition and you surrender, then what happens? You forfeit. You lose. So immediately with surrender, we connect the connotation of loss or failure. And who wants to lose? No one wants to lose, really, do they? Everyone always wants to be the winner. Everyone wants to come out on top. So, but this idea of surrender, it somehow has this connotation of loss. But Burijan Prabhu explains very nicely in one place that actually surrender in Sanskrit has nothing to do with loss. It has to do with placing oneself under shelter. And when one gains shelter, when one places oneself under the shelter of either the spiritual master, authority, a spiritual master, or ultimately Krishna, then what can be lost? What at all can be lost? Actually, there is only gain. There's only victory. Neha Bikramanashosi Pratyavayu Navidyate, that there's no loss or diminution on this path. And a little bit of devotional service can save one from the most dangerous type of fear. So when we're able to surrender ourselves, then we gain shelter. But if we feel that surrender means loss, and we feel this turmoil inside, I don't really want to do this, but I have to. Devotional service should become something that is not that we have to, but that we want to. At least the first stage should be that I want to. Ultimately, it should become that I love to. Right? That I love to do service. I want to become a servant of the servant of the servant. Actually, one devotee last night, I wanted to try to find this. I didn't have time this morning. Was sharing with me prayers of King Kulashekar from the Mukunda Mala Stotra. And verse 25, I can't remember the Sanskrit term, maybe it's Brityu. I think it's Brityu. But in this verse, King Kulashekar, he's saying, my dear Lord, I want that the goal of my life, my only desire becomes that you see me, and he says 7 times, as the servant of 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 your servants. That is my only desire. That's how I want to be seen. So this is the pure mood of devotional service. That we simply want to be the servant. We simply want to be engaged in helping and assisting anyone that we can. And Bali Maharaj, here, what to speak of us giving up a little bit of our time. Bali Maharaj is at this point the king of everything. He's the king of all 3 planetary systems. He's so respected, so reputed. All of us gathered here, you're all great Vaishnavas. But somehow Bali Maharaj had such opulence, such profound opulence that he had conquested and taken up. And on the request of a little Brahmin boy, a little dwarf, he gave everything. He gave his land. He gave all 3 planetary systems. But more than that, more than the externals, he gave up his dignity. He gave up his pride. He gave up honor of position. All of these things. And then, on top of that, after giving all of this, the Lord bound him up in ropes and imprisoned him and completely humiliated him. But there was not one point at which Bali Maharaj actually put up any fight or argument. Right? If it was, even with me and this chanting japa and the temple commander comes, you immediately went, but Prabhu, come on, it's like this, it's like that, and we want to argue, isn't it? The propensity to defend our situation is so strong. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Most of the time we understand defending means defending property, defending land, defending the family, defending friendships, defending so many things. But predominantly, what we defend is our false ego. Maximum amounts of time is spent defending the false ego. How could you ask for so much? Don't you know who I am? Don't you understand who I am? And if you don't understand now, in the future, you will understand who I am. And then you'll suffer. Somehow inside of us, these demons exist. At least they exist in me, absolutely. For all of you, probably not. But you can see it in others, right? These little voices that come out, and maybe we don't express them, but they're there inside, thinking like this. But Bali Maharaj, setting such an amazing example, he just surrendered everything, allowed himself to be completely bound and imprisoned, and offering no objection. Trusting fully, having absolute and firm faith in the Lord, that whatever is the Lord's desire, ultimately is the best thing for me. But then, on his behalf, Actually, even after this, he offered his body. The concern was, what about the third step? Where shall I place my third step? And Bali Maharaj didn't come up with some flippant, sarcastic answer like, well, I got a good place for you to put your third step there, Mr. Vamanadev. He said, place it on my head. Please allow me to surrender the only thing that I feel like I have left to give, which is this body, which is basically yours anyway. And he surrendered that. What an exalted personality. And then, after all of that, he's still bound in ropes. And apparently being punished by the Lord. So this is showing another example that sometimes there's a saying that the Lord moves in mysterious ways. Anyone has had that experience in their own lives? That the Lord seems to move in mysterious ways. Sometimes completely apparent setbacks within our devotional lives turn out to be the most wonderful opportunities in actual fact. We can see in the situation with the grandson of Bali Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj. What an exalted soul. But most of at least his childhood was completely filled with torture. He was being tortured. And one might think, why would the Lord allow this? But sometimes the devotee is put into difficult situations simply to expose his greatness. As Srila Prabhupada writes in the Krishna book, a man's greatness can be known by his ability to tolerate provoking circumstances. I'll say that again. A man or woman's greatness can be known by their ability to tolerate provoking circumstances. One more time for good luck. The greatness of a person can be known by their ability to tolerate provoking circumstances. Has anyone here ever been provoked by a circumstance? You don't have to give the circumstance a name. Right. And it's like, I've heard it said that Krishna, although we think the other person or the other thing is the problem, but Krishna is not concerned about the other thing. He's concerned about how you are going to react. Jai Shishi Radha Gokulananda ki jai, Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki jai, Shishi Jai Nitai ki jai. So the Lord is just waiting to see how we react. Even if the other person is apparently completely in the wrong. Even if. But the Lord just wants to see how we react. In the situation with Prahlad Maharaj, he never forgot the Lord for a moment. He had plenty of good reasons, probably many better reasons than any of us here, to start to think that maybe God doesn't exist. Otherwise, how come I'm being tortured so much by my own father? He had plenty of good reasons. The world is filled with good reasons why we shouldn't surrender or take more shelter of Krishna. There are unlimited reasons. Most of the time, throughout our day, each day, probably every hour, there are plenty of good reasons why we should completely walk away from the process of devotional service. And usually there's only one good reason why we should stay. Because that's actually the right thing. And doing the right thing isn't always easy. As the situation with Bali Maharaj. But he did not refute. Then, on his behalf, the Vaishnavas, Lord Brahma, his good wife, they came forward and they began to petition the Lord. my dear Lord, please, he's been punished enough. But Bali Maharaj, I don't think it doesn't seem to be revealed in the pages of the Bhagavatam that he was sitting there thinking, come on, won't somebody help me out here? Can't you see I've suffered enough? He was prepared to carry on. No problem, as long as required. However long the Lord sees fit. But of course, the Vaishnavas, they come to the rescue. I was reminded of the situation in Chaitanya Leela with King Prataparudra, right? How King Prataparudra was so much yearning for the Sangha, the association of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was like, no way. I will not associate with a king. And the devotees, they kept petitioning on his behalf. And we can see another lesson from this pastime, that a devotee will, in one sense, take upon himself whatever is coming as the Lord's mercy. But the other devotees, if the need be there, then they will actually petition the Lord on behalf of that devotee. My Lord, please help him. Please come on. Like Lord Brahma is saying, he's suffered enough. He's had enough. Untie him. Release him. Don't torture him anymore. And then this is also an opportunity for the devotees to exhibit their compassion and their love and the mood that is meant to be amongst Vaishnavas and devotees. That they want to help, they want to assist, that they're willing to approach the Lord. This is why we should always ask devotees, please pray for me. No matter how exalted you may become in your position or even your revelation or realization, but it always behooves us to ask the devotees to please pray. Please pray for me. Please pray that I can remain fixed in devotional service. Please pray that I can remain fixed at the lotus feet of my spiritual master. Please pray that I can become a humble servant of the devotees. Please pray that my false ego does not overcome me and I become puffed up with false pride and commit offenses. Please pray for me. So Raghunath Das Goswami would offer like thousands of obeisances every day, to all the devotees, constantly offering respect. I don't know if there's a point at which we can be, too humble. Of course, maybe there are times when humility can be artificial. But we should always ask devotees, please pray for me. Please pray. Your prayers, if you petition the Lord on my behalf, then there's some hope for me. So like this, another very wonderful lesson that we can learn. And then this purport today, in today's verse, that Lord Brahma, he's actually using the knowledge, the Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam verse. And he's saying, my dear Lord, you're pleased even if your devotee offers you a little bit of water, or a tiny flower, or some leaf or a fruit. What to speak of this Bali Maharaj? He's given you everything. So please, don't forget how much you love your devotee. Anyone who offers you even the tiniest thing, you accept that. You accept that love. And he's offered you with complete surrender. Atmanavedanam. He's given you everything. Please, have mercy on him. So we can understand that this philosophy of Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam, the Lord doesn't need anything that we have. He doesn't, in one sense, he doesn't need any material thing that we have. Sometimes we can become even proud of the service that we're offering. Or they say that a pauper becomes proud of his penny. We can become proud of something that we're offering to the Lord, whether it's service or money. We can begin to think, the Lord needs me. I'm doing something so great. But the Lord doesn't need any of us. to do anything in actual fact. He can do whatever he likes, whenever he likes, however he likes, and he can do it with any limb of his body. With any of his senses, he can perform the functions of any of his other senses. So what does he need? Sometimes we speak about, like, mango season, I think, is just coming into season now, right? It's already in mid. So sometimes devotees, they come and they're like, here's a mango. I have brought a mango to the Lord. And I remember thinking one time after reading, I think it's the 5th canto in the Heavenly Planets, how there are trees with mangoes the size of elephants. And I think, you're offering this little mango. I mean, if God really wants a mango, He's going to go there. He's going to get a mango the size of an elephant. And it's described that when these mangoes fall from the trees, they land and they splash and they create rivers of mango ras. Now, we don't want to meditate on that for too long, or else we might find ourselves on these heavenly planets. But what the Lord needs, our little mango, He can get humongous mangoes. But what does He want? He wants our love. He wants our surrender. He wants our devotion. He wants us to remember Him at every possible opportunity. That's what He wants. Simple. Just the love. So we have to be careful that love doesn't become eclipsed by false pride. That we try to keep it as simple and as pure as possible. That we protect it, fence around it. Beg the devotees, please pray for me. And then we continue in this mood of understanding that if I surrender to Krishna, even just a little, if I try, then Krishna will help me. And if some obstacle or some impediment or some reversal comes, then with all my heart I have to try to see the Lord's hand. I have to try to see that the Lord is trying to help me. I may not understand, but like Dinabandhu Prabhu, I think he's also coming soon, he gave this amazing analogy, maybe I've told it here before, but about the tapestry. Have I told this analogy before? Probably even if I did, we would have forgotten it by now, so I'll tell it again. So the analogy of this tapestry, everyone knows what a tapestry is? So it's like some stitch work. Like if you take, let's say, the deities' outfits, or sometimes they have these really beautifully designed backdrops. The side that we look at is the side that's meant to be seen. But the backside, sometimes if you look at it, you know what's on the backside of anything that's knitted and stitched up. If you turn your shirt inside out, you see all of the seams and the stitching. So he was explaining that when we're looking at the world, very often the way that we're looking at it is we're seeing all the seams and all the stitching, and everything looks very chaotic. It looks very messy. It doesn't seem to be organized. It certainly doesn't look very ornate. It doesn't look presentable. And sometimes it just looks unfinished. He said, but Krishna is looking from the other side. And what he sees is everything perfectly laid out and so beautiful. So we simply are looking from the wrong angle or wrong perspective. And we have to try to understand that Krishna has the perfect vision. He has the real 20/20 vision. Our vision is obscured. Our vision is often obstructed by false pride, false ego, by our own personal desires, by the 4 defects. But the Lord sees perfectly. So like that. Now, I don't know what time we meant to finish. 8:30? Yeah. So there's not very much time left. I did want to speak a little something, although I was coming here and realizing that today is Hanuman Jayanti, and how blessed I am to actually be here on this special occasion in the presence of Sri Hanumanji and his Lord and Lady. And I was thinking that I should probably say a little something, but I got a bit carried away with the verse, and also I was realizing that how little I actually know about Hanuman myself. Of course, the normal pastimes, and I was remembering one class that Rupa Vilas Prabhu gave on Ram Navami, and we were discussing about how when it came to the point at which Hanuman had to jump from India, where was it? Rameshwar. He was in Rameshwar. When he had to jump from there to Lanka, that he wasn't feeling that he could do it, right? And we started to discuss, and we couldn't exactly remember, why was it that he couldn't remember, and what was the situation. So I was trying to find out what was the cause of that, because Hanuman's origin is so exalted. And in the process of trying to find this out, I found out so many other things that I didn't realize that I knew. Of course, it's sometimes when you try to find out the origin of great souls, you find that it's like, how long is a piece of string, And there's so many different things intertwined, and because, the understanding always was that he's the son of Vayu, and his mother's name is Anjana, and father is Kerati. And one of the monkey soldiers, so the apparent material, but Vayu is supposed to be his father. But then I was hearing that also Lord Shiva, and there's different understandings of the pastimes. That what I was hearing is from Mohini Murti, when that pastime was happening with Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva became overwhelmed and he, wanting to be overwhelmed, such a strict personality, that when he discharged, that was ultimately carried to by Vayu to impregnate Anjana, and that he's also an expansion of Lord Shiva. But either way, such a great personality. How is it that he could forget his immense, powerful qualities at such an important time? And we were remembering how when he was young, Hanuman used to want to eat the sun. He used to think it was a mango, right? Proper mango. Big mango. And because he was the son of Vayu and he was so empowered, then he used to jump up and try to eat the sun. And somehow Surya Bhagavan was able to kind of keep him away. But I think one day when he was jumping up to try to devour the sun, it was meant to be a solar eclipse, right? And what is it? Rahu. And Rahu was coming, because he had been given the benediction that he could devour the sun and the moon at specific astrological times. And when he was jumping, as Rahu was coming to eclipse the sun, then he saw this little monkey coming right at him, and he became frightened. And so then he was really upset, and he called to the Devatas, please help me. And then I think Lord Indra came, because Indra had given the benediction to Rahu, and then Indra sent his thunderbolt, and he hit Hanuman on the chin, and Hanuman kind of fell away. But then there was some upset because of this incident, and Vayu became very upset because his son had been injured by Indra. So then he began to withdraw all the air from the universe, and all the Devatas, they started to get a little concerned about the situation. As you can imagine, if someone started to take all the air out of this room, we might also start to get a little concerned. So eventually they all went, the Devatas went, they offered their apologies, and they began giving many, many benedictions to Hanumanji. So they gave all these benedictions. I won't go into all the different benedictions, but they gave so many different benedictions, all of the different demigods, long life, and so that he can't be cursed, and so many different things. And he was empowered, even more empowered than he already was. But somehow, because of this empowerment, he was almost like misusing his powers, and he was getting into much mischief. Seems like many of the greatest personalities are very mischievous in their childhood. So I heard this, actually I was hearing one Prabhupada lecture, and he said, I think there was a child in the room making some noise, and someone said something like, the child is naughty, and he said, anyway, if your child is naughty, it means he is very intelligent. If you have a naughty child, it means he's very intelligent. And Prabhupada said, I was also a naughty child. So, we can see Hanumanji was doing the same thing, and then basically these rishis that I think he kept stealing their clothes, stealing their kopans, so many different things. So eventually they gave him a curse stroke benediction that he would actually forget about all of his powers, all of his gifts, all of these boons and blessings. So then from that point on, he just became a normal, somewhat normal kind of monkey. Although he still had all of his powers, but he just became a little unconscious of them. So then it was at that point where he was meant to jump to Lanka that he was thinking, can I do it? Should I do it? And then he was convinced. Who was it that convinced him? Who was it? The Bear King, Jambavan. He said, "No, you've got the power. You can do it." And then he helped to instill this memory in him. And then after that, he jumped to Lanka. So anyway, there were some other things, but I think I should probably finish here. Hanumanji ki. Anyway, lots of other things. I thank you all very much for your very kind attention. Please forgive any transgressions, or if I overstep the mark in any way. I really sincerely appreciate the opportunity to come and speak here for my purification in the assembly of Vaishnavas. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.